Looking to no-hit Bayle the Dread? Well, the first tip I can offer you is to use the Dragon Hunter's Great Katana that you got on your way to this boss fight. In many ways, this weapon feels like a Storm Ruler or a Serpent Hunter's Spear, one of those weapons that is specific to a boss. This weapon feels more specific to this area, although not so directly, just kind of very helpful for this area and given to you early in this area. But specifically within Bayle, it will allow you some serious openings that you wouldn't otherwise have. This fight is pretty complex, so I'm pretty much just going to take you through his entire moveset, starting with his most simple moves. He has one jump slam that he'll only do at range, and frequently does at the beginning of the fight because you're so far away. This is telegraphed by a jump and offers you a pretty huge opening. He has a flying lightning slam that comes at you a lot faster than you would expect and places you directly underneath him, so your camera will be fighting you. So I usually sprint towards his head and then jump attack to try to correct that before his next attack will come at me. And camera issues are another reason why the Dragon Hunter is such a great weapon for this fight. It allows you a ranged option for your openings, and so you don't have to get so close that you're going to be forcing yourself under his head and having your camera spaz the fuck out. He has two instances of fire moves, which you can also splice into a couple other combos that I'll talk about later. The first is a strafe across the arena that is pretty easy to dodge. You just kind of got to pay attention to where the fire is in relation to you. The straight fire, however, is much more difficult and honestly, in my opinion, kind of broken, unless I'm misunderstanding something. As far as I can tell, it seems like the fire itself has physics and is allowed to bounce on different pieces of architecture or the bones in the arena, which means you're constantly going to be hit by this in situations where you couldn't possibly get away from it, especially when you're far away and you're giving the fire a lot of opportunity to bounce around in unpredictable ways. Honestly, pretty sloppy design, but whatever. If you just dodge twice to the right or left, you'll usually dodge it. He has this charging move, which will hit you if you're too close to the sides of the arena, as his body is the thing dealing damage, and if he's stuck against the wall, he'll be hitting you even if he's not moving. So you'll have to stand at the center of the arena as much as possible, so that way you can avoid that. His follow-up to this move is one of two things. One where he seems to bounce against the side of the arena and then come back at you with a huge tail sweep. This one has a really satisfying telegraph, and you'll pretty easily know when it's coming. The other is a more standard back punish that he has, where he'll do several instances of movement before the attack actually swings, so it is a little difficult to time. But in this animation, he'll fall to the ground and he'll give you a bigger opening, so take that into consideration. But at the end of the day, you're pretty much just going to use the charged version of the Ash of War on this weapon if you want to effectively damage him at this point. It'll deal a ton of damage and you'll be likely safe from the follow-up because you'll be far enough away. He has a grab move where he charges lightning in his mouth and then attacks you. It's pretty easy to do a back dodge and then jump attack his head, and he will almost always, and I'm not sure if this is because of my positioning or what, but for me, he almost always did this two-hit combo with his wing afterward, which offers you a way bigger opening than you would expect. And so for this whole combo, I get one jump heavy in and a full dragon wound Ash of War into him after the wings. And so that's another attack he can do at random at any point, is the wing attack, the double wings, which offers you an opening every single time. And that's a big thing you'll come to understand about Bayle to be effective in him, is that he has a lot of false openings. A lot of situations where you can get damage in sometimes, but you'll often also fail if he just happens to do a series of moves that are rare, but will hit you if you're attacking at that point. This wing attack, however, is very consistently a huge opening and is one of your most important sources of damage. Now, he has two sets of combos that are both very long and can be very short. They also have a bunch of branching paths that the move can take into different moves. The first is his bite combos, which can start with a wing attack at first, but this specific charged wing attack. He then goes for a bite. You can also start this move with a bite, but he goes for a bite, goes for another bite. This attack here, which you'll have to recognize as one which he can attack immediately after, and so you will always dodge after you see this move. You're gonna feel like a fool a lot of the times because you're just dodging when nothing's happening, but I guarantee you it's better to dodge and not have anything happen rather than not dodge and die. Now, following this move where he raises his head up, he has a lot that can happen at this point. He can use this charged lightning slam, which is pretty straightforward, but he can also use an immediate straight fire attack, which is very difficult to time if you're not prepared for it. And so one thing I found myself doing is immediately after his head raise, I dodged again to the left of him. Again, I would dodge even if I didn't see the attack coming because I wanted to set myself up for the success of the move if it did happen. The caveat is that you'll kind of be setting yourself up to fail for the lightning move. Not fail, you'll just have to dodge it perfectly and you can't rely on distance to evade the move. So I advise you to just steel your nerves and set yourself up to effectively dodge both attacks, but you'll have to be able to dodge both attacks. And so the full combo will look something like this. In the case of the electric, dodges bite, dodge again, even if he doesn't go for the headbutt. If he does go for the headbutt, dodge again to the left, and then he'll either go for a lightning attack slam or the fire attack. And if he goes for the straight fire, you'll have a huge opening at that point, and you can do a full Ash of War into his neck. The other outcome when he does this huge lightning slam that he does frequently on a series of different moves is that you'll trigger him to dash away and do a straight fire from a distance. You can kind of try to trick him into doing this because this is one of those false openings I was talking about. After he does one of these lightning slams and he's done with a combo, he's essentially waiting for you to attack him so that way he can trick you. When you get close enough in proximity, you can see his state change slightly and he's gonna go for another attack. Although sometimes he won't and he'll let you hit him. But if he's going for an attack, he can immediately go into a combo again, or he can dash away and do the fire. I found myself often pushing into him after this move in an attempt to trigger what was next and then sprinting away regardless in hopes that I can close the distance enough on his next straight fire so that I can safely get an Ash of War into him. For whatever reason, you will have to dodge this straight fire attack by dodging to the left. I'm not sure exactly why, but every single time I tried dodging to the right, I ended up eating the fire or dodging directly into it, as he would for some reason predict my movements at that point. Anyway, just be aware that when he does a slam move like this, there is a chance he's going into a dash and straight fire. The same thing applies to the slam at the end of his roar combo, in which he'll roar and then hit once and then hit twice very quickly, which means you'll either have to dodge both of those attacks within the timing of a single dodge, which is very difficult, or dodge underneath him, which also screws you over camera-wise and gives you zero telegraph for his final delayed slam. Again, this electric slam is not an opening, it's a false opening, and the same rules apply that happened to the other one, where you can trigger him to do a jumping straight fire and hopefully close the distance. Now, it should be noted that every single one of his slam moves in Phase 2 will summon a line of lightning that will strike in your direction a couple seconds, second or two later. And also on the slams that end off combos, he will do that slam a second time, which is why I recommend you just never really attack on any of the slam moves. They are mostly false openings, and either way in Phase 2, you're going to want to be prepared for what's coming next most of the time on these moves, especially when considering that he still has some pretty basic, easy to damage on moves in Phase 2 that are much more simple and intuitive sources of damage. Now at around 75% health, Bayle will get one move added to his moveset, which is this roar attack that summons lightning down on top of you. This is another reason why this katana is a great weapon for this fight, because otherwise when attacking him on his head, it leaves you very vulnerable to this roar attack hitting you. After the roar, you'll be hit with a series of lightning markers, which you can just sprint out pretty easily, and then get ready for the next attack. Now, if you get a stagger critical in Phase 1, you'll be able to do some serious damage to him in that opening. He stays down for a considerable amount of time, which is great because if you were to down him while behind him, he's a pretty large body. It's nice to have that time to reach his crit, but if you're attacking on his head, it means that you'll have plenty of time to deal damage. I was able to get a full Ash of War and a couple light attacks before grabbing the crit itself, and then charging another Ash of War on him afterwards, which should likely get you into Phase 2 at that point. A Phase 2 starts with a combination of two moves he'll get in Phase 2, used as an intro for his Phase 2. The start is this AoE which summons spouts of fire around him, and you should use this time to find a central location in the arena to help you dodge the subsequent attack, in which he'll fly in a circle around the arena, shitting out little fire projectiles that will heat seek towards you. This move can actually be pretty difficult. It looks easy to dodge here, but by just sprinting it out. But you have to be really careful to keep yourself sprinting perpendicular to the next incoming fireball attack, which can be difficult while you're tracking the boss who's pulling you away from the point where you can even see the fireballs at certain points. And so you should just keep your analog stick pointed in the direction that you last saw was perpendicular and hopefully finish out that part of the move. Next, he'll come strafing in at you, which can be pretty difficult to time and is basically a death sentence if you're too close to the wall. And so as you assume the last fireball is gone, you should be sprinting towards him and then try to dodge through the move, and then watch out for further flame spouts that he leaves behind in the path of his attack. Now both of these individual pieces of his phase 2 intro move will be added to his moveset as individual moves. The explosion one and the flying one, which I did not realize. I think the flying one might be pretty rare, or maybe I don't know, got unlucky and didn't see it. The telegraph for that is that he will fly immediately away after sprouting wings and begin his arcing path. You'll see me spam rolls in this instance because I wasn't ready for it, but it worked well enough, so maybe try that. He also gets 3 unique moves added to his moveset in Phase 2, each telegraphed with him sprouting his wings. I'll note that on his intro AoE move, he doesn't sprout wings, and so that's how you will tell the difference between that move and this one, where he sprouts his wings, charges up lightning into his arm, and then slams the ground, marking the ground with a massive AoE, which oddly enough is a jumpable move. And so if you dodge the initial slam, wait just a sliver of a second, and then jump over the attack and into his head, you can get a jump attack in on this move. The other 2 of his special moves involve him flying. The first, where he flies straight up and then comes strafing down at you. The initial slam of that strafe is pretty delayed, and then at that point you just want to spam dodges. It kind of always worked to just spam away from the flame spouts that spawn on his move. And then there's a little awkward moment where the camera has turned you to the side and you were back dodging, so you ended up at a 90-degree angle from him, and he'll just attack nothing for a second. It's kind of awkward and kind of dangerous, so keep an eye out for that. Really wish the camera was better for this fight. And lastly, he'll have a flying move where he strafes through the air, breathing fire across the ground. This fire is pretty poorly telegraphed. It's kind of hard to see, and it sometimes seems to not spawn correctly visually. But the fire hits the ground and then sprays out as soon as it hits, creating a wave of flame that you'll have to dodge through. At that point, you'll want to identify where he is in the air, because he'll come strafing across the arena at you with another wave of fire, this time leaving behind a marker of explosion. You'll dodge through the wave of fire and then delay ever so slightly and then dodge again. This attack is not jumpable. However, Bayle will land right in front of you at that point, and you can get a light attack in. And that's pretty much all of his moveset, unless I forgot something. But yeah, hopefully you can put all that together in some way. It's a pretty complex fight. There's a lot going on. Hopefully this guide helped you out. Let me know in the comments. And when you put it all together, it'll look something like this.